Alright, so this is the head of the Suzuki is off the car, and it turns out there's a crack in the head. And we found this by seeing water sitting inside on the valve there. And all of these screws have to come out to pull the cam gear off to then check that there is a crack. Once we find it, we're then going to swap the head out, put all this rocker gear back into a fresh head and put it back in the car. But as I was pulling these out, the tool I was using actually failed. You can see it's all twisted and buggered. So these are in pretty tight, and on the very last one it let go and it stripped it. So now I've had to break out the welder and build up a little bit of a TIG mound there so I can get some vice grips onto it, grab on, twist it out. So I'm going to give that a go now. Alright, vice grips are attached, and just like that, comes straight out. Oh, that's really annoying. Oh no, they're only that long. I thought I'd broken it for a second, then got worried. So yeah, just in case you get stuck and you get a stripped bolt, TIG seems to work pretty well. Alright, so in searching for the cracked part of the head, I pulled one of the valves out, just this intake valve here. And if anyone's ever wondered what carbon buildup looks like, that's it there. Really hard to scratch off. And yeah, that'll slow your airflow down going into your engine. Not pushing a build like this, but anyway, if you look up underneath, let me see if I can get a better light. Up underneath the valve guide, there's a little bit of moisture under there, and it's a little bit green. Not sure if you can really pick up on it, but that seems to be the highest concentration of coolant remnants in the entire chamber, and it's the only spot I can't see, and I can't see the crack anywhere else, so I'm going to assume that that's the spot there, which is really annoying that I can't actually see or tell, or whatever. And although it'd be nice to get the head checked, it's too expensive and I don't care enough. But you can kind of see the colour there. So I think that's where the crack is, and the subsequent leak of coolant is into the cylinder. Oh, there we go. But I can't be sure. So we're just going to go with it for now. Alright, so I'm back on the Suzuki again today. The head's away at the machine shop, getting pressure tested, cleaned, faced, new valve stem seals, maybe a valve reseat, and just seeing if it will hold pressure and everything. The old head had a crack in it as far as I could tell, so we figured we have a spare, we may as well just throw that through and see what we can figure. While we're in here, we know whoever was here last did a pretty dodgy job, so I'm going to replace the water pump, the timing belt idler, because it looks pretty hagged, and put a new timing belt and everything on it. So yeah, we're just going to undo all these bolts, rip the water pump off, pull this off, throw the new water pump on, and maybe even give the head a bit of a light sand just to get the gasket material off. It's not too bad, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't done that long ago, so should be able to save it, and yeah, we'll go from there. Alright, so I got the water pump off, and not too bad in there. It'll be good to flush it out because it still has oil in the water. The gasket seems okay, and it doesn't seem like it was leaking, but a couple of the bolts were pretty loose, so I'm glad I took it out. It does look okay, it spins alright, so put this on the shelf as a spare, as we do have a couple of these cars, so maybe another one will fail and we'll need this one, but for now we'll throw the brand new one on, because this one's the workhorse, so we want to have the best parts on it. Alright, so I gave the block a bit of a clean, just the mating surface. It's probably not the greatest way to do it, but I just sort of scrubbed all the old gasket off with a really soft wire brush, like a plastic one, and then ran over it with some 400 grit sandpaper on a block, just to give it a nice little bit of shine. It's still got all the machining marks from whoever did it last, so should be fine to accept a new gasket and the head without having to remachine it. So yeah, I just made sure I put something in the bores when I was sanding and when I was scrubbing it, so that nothing ended up in here. There's still like a little bit of stuff in there, but it's nothing serious. And now I'm going to flush the coolant system, so the water galleries go all the way around these bores, So I made sure I cleaned this first, and then when I run the water through, it'll spit out all the gunk that came off of the gasket mating surface into these water galleries, so that'll get spat out now. And then before I run the car, I'll change the oil, so anything that went down into the oil galleries, which I think are these ones, will come out in the sump hopefully, and obviously the filter will pick up a lot of them too. So yeah, I'm just going to flush out the block now. Alright, so we got the cylinder head back from the machine shop. They disassembled it, gave it a dip, put some new valve stem seals in it, cleaned up the valves, machined the mounting face. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So now we're going to throw all the rocker gear and the cams out of the old head into the new head, and throw it in the car. Hopefully we get it running in the next day or so. Alright, here's the new head all ready to go. It's got the distributor, fuel pump, and all the rocker gear in it. So I'm just going to run it down and put it on the engine now. Alright, so the new head gasket's on. It's all ready to go. Just going to bring the head down, drop it on, and then throw some head studs in it. Alright, so here's the head back on the engine. Nice fit with the new gasket in there. So now just got to throw some head studs in, reassemble the rest of it, set the timing, and hope I didn't make any mistakes. Alright, so it's been about 6 months now since the Suzuki head swap took place. I'm only just editing the videos, and I've gone through and realised I filmed up to the point where I actually put the head on, and then I didn't film anything else. So as with most projects, I'm sure anyone that appreciates building a car, disassembly, you take a lot of videos and photos and stuff like that, and then as you get closer and closer to reassemble and running, it all just sort of gets out of hand, because you start trying to solve problems and you don't want to video the problems until you solve them, and then you solve them and find another problem and just move on really quickly. So basically what happened with all this was, reassembled it, new exhaust manifold gasket, put a whole bunch more bolts in that were previously not there. They're all nice and tight, and it doesn't leak at all, even though it didn't really leak to begin with. I'm sure you saw in the video most of the bolts were loose. All the intake manifold bolts went back in, and I was lucky enough, I found some spare Suzuki parts, because a couple of years ago we wrecked one because it was rusty and gross, and we just disassembled it all. So I managed to get a few new intake manifold bolts and put them in, so that was good. I'm not 100% sure on all the timing stuff. I tried to replace the timing belt and all that sort of junk, but I'll show some photos here. The timing belt I bought didn't fit this gear at all, so apparently these motors are a G13A, which is this, or G13BA, sorry. You can see there on this particular Suzuki, and for the most part they're just a G13A or something like that, I can't really remember, and they run a completely different timing belt. And then I'm not even sure if I put the new water pump on. I think I did, but anyway, none of it matched up, and they were kind of hard to find parts for, and I just ran out of time. The old one wasn't in a bad condition, I just would have liked to have had a newer one, so just sort of threw it all in there and got all the rocker stuff set, and it seemed to run pretty well. Put a new rocker cover gasket in there because someone had just siliconed that rocker cover down, so I had to scrape all that out and do it all again. The other problem that I came across was the carburetor. This car never really liked to run very well, and I don't know too much about these carburetors, and I couldn't really find much information. It seems like around the world, all the different models of Suzuki Sierra, Samurai, or Jimny, or whatever you call them, they all had different carburetor variations. Now, all the carburetors that we have on our Sierras are the same for these 1.3 litres. However, I've never really tuned one or set up one or anything like that, and I can go into more detail on one of these carburetors if people want to, but I'd have to refresh my memory because it's been so long. But pretty much I had to go through and wind out every single screw, and then start the car, and then slowly bring in the ones where I knew what they did until the car started to run correctly, and then wind the rest of them in and try and make it seem like it worked well. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically at the moment it runs fine. The only thing I need to change is, I think these are like a little stepper motor for when, say for example, you turn the headlights on, there's more of a current draw, so it's supposed to step the RPM up just a couple of hundred RPM, but at the moment it jumps up like 500 to 1,000, so I need to adjust them. Other than that, the car runs great. We got rid of the cold start helper thing. It's sort of like this gross looking asbestos hose that runs across the top of the engine. I'm sure that's great in a really cold climate, but here in Australia, where I live, it gets to like maybe 0 in the middle of winter at midnight, and the car never gets driven in those conditions, so just get rid of that gross pipe. Makes the engine bay look a little cleaner. Other than that, we had some coolant leaks from a dodgy O-ring and a hose clamp that wasn't tight. I mean, it still runs great. It pulls a lot better now because the carby's been properly set up, I guess. Feels like it has better compression, maybe, I don't know, but the car goes great, and I'll give you a quick startup. The car's already warm, but it loves to start, as you can tell. God, that was really terrible. But anyway, starts fine. Runs fine. Yeah, it's just a good little workhorse, never misses a beat. There we go, that's a little better. Must have just not had fuel pressure. So, sorry, not fuel pressure, fuel in the bowl. So yeah, great little car, not a bad little swap. Sorry I didn't get more footage of it going back together, but I'll endeavour in the future to get as much footage as I can when I'm completing the projects as well. So yeah, all done. So as I mentioned before, I needed to adjust this, so while I'm here, I'll just quickly show you that. So at the moment the car's just idling, and hopefully you can see this. I'll just turn the headlights on. See how it bumps the RPM up? A little too much. So what we're going to do, really hope you can see that, is we're just going to grab a 10mm and we're going to adjust this nut here, because this is the little arm that pushes it. So we're going to wind this back in so it has less of an effect when it steps the RPM up. So I'm just going to do that now. Alright, so already I'm an idiot. I just realised that this is the thing that actually does the actuation. So it's a vacuum thing that's activated by this solenoid down here, which has manifold reference and atmospheric reference. So whatever, it turns it on. So it basically pulls the sum across. So if you look underneath here, there's a little thing there that pushes on it, and that makes it so it moves that. And this is just a sensor to detect how far it moves. So see if I can cram a screwdriver in here, wind this out. And I've already got the wrong screwdriver, I need a flat blade, but basically I'm going to wind that out and hopefully it has less of an effect. Alright, so I've just wound it out a little bit, so you can hear, turn it on, bumps you on just a little bit, turn it off, drops it. So ideally this won't, this will still bump it quite a lot when you turn the air conditioning on. So yep, there we go. So it's got a different stepper for the aircon as opposed to just the lights. So that should do just fine. I have no idea what this thing does. It's a sensor of some sort. Hopefully it does everything it needs to. I don't know, too bad. If it breaks, I'll fix it. Alright, so that's the end of the Suzuki build for now. If anything else has to be done on this car, I'll let you know. I think at the moment it's got a bit of a steering wobble under brakes in certain conditions, like the steering damper's worn out, or maybe the steering box has got a bit of loose play in it. But for now, it's all done. That's the end of it. So we'll see you on the next episode. Today on Fury Garage, I'm going to show you how to pull a drive shaft out of a 100 series Land Cruiser. This is going to be a quick one, so hold on.